Amazing. You've seen people talking about tech, the six-figure salaries, the hackerman feeling of typing 100 words per minute on your keyboard, the ability to create magical things out of thin air, and you're attractive. You want to become a programmer. Through my role at Learn Web3, I've come across a lot of students in a similar position as you. I get asked advice on how to begin programming, how to approach writing code, and oftentimes hear frustrations around how, even after weeks or months or sometimes even years, people feeling like they're not good enough or they don't know how to build a project entirely from scratch, or they're comparing themselves to others and saying we're not good as them. So in this video, I want to take a little bit of a quick detour from our regular topics on this channel and talk about how you, a student, should approach programming. Whether it is to become a Web2 developer, Web3 developer, whatever you want to do, let's dig into what's important, what you should avoid, and I'm going to try and compress all the knowledge from my last 12 years of being in this industry or so, and all the advice I've refined and iterated upon, given to thousands of people during that time. So there's a few different bullet points. We're going to talk about 6 things today. So let's just get into it. So the first thing you need, and this is one of the most important things, the first thing you need to do is you need to define a goal. What do you want to do, or what do you want to become? Becoming a software engineer is a very vague goal. It's a good goal to have, but it's also very vague because software engineering comprises of hundreds of different things, and this answer may change over time. Whatever you say right now, whatever you think right now, you don't have to stick to it for your entire lifetime, and it's okay and it's normal for this answer to change over time. But when you're starting out, it's really easy to get pulled away into 100 different things because every day you wake up, you see something new, you see something cool. When you're getting onto this journey, you're going to follow different programming YouTube channels, following people on Twitter, talking to other people on this journey, and every day you'll hear about this cool new XYZ thing, and you're going to be like, shit, man, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd done that. So it's really important when you're starting out that you have some sort of goal so you don't get distracted by all this noise around you, right? One day you wake up and you see on Twitter, this machine learning AI thing where you type something and this beautiful image gets generated for you. Another day you wake up and Bitcoin's at $50,000 and you want to become a Web3 developer. Another day you wake up, you learn about how Instagram handles 2 billion video uploads per day, and that seems super cool to you. Another day you wake up, you're like, Rust seems such a hyped up language, I want to go learn Rust. This is kind of useless because you're taking one step forward in like 4 or 5 different directions, and what you're going to do is you're just not going to go anywhere. You need to set a goal. You need to identify what kind of things are you interested in, and regardless of whether or not you stick with that over like a longer time frame, stick with that in the short term. Get good at something, put all your effort, put your focus into doing something really well before like trying out 100 different things. So just as an example, maybe you're a creative person, right? Maybe you care a lot about how websites look and feel and the user experience and things like that. So, you probably want to focus on front-end development. You probably want to learn things like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, maybe designing tools like Figma, and really, really focus on that and not get distracted by all this machine learning and blockchain and all this noise, and just do what you want to. On the other side, if you're more of a sort of algorithms person, you like mathematics, you like the hard sciences, something, you might be interested towards more back-end development. Maybe you're not that creative and you can't design beautiful looking websites, but you want to work on like the backside, like making sure that your hardware computer can handle a lot of users or a lot of scale, or building out some really complex things. And maybe you want to go into back-end development for that. Maybe data is your game. Maybe you like sort of the machine learning aspects of things, and you like the future where computers are smarter. I mean, they are already smarter than all of us, and you want to build a better future through that. Maybe choose machine learning and don't get distracted by people building these crazy looking websites with beautiful animations. Pick a goal, whatever it may be, and stick with it, at least for a little while, stick with it to the point where you're comfortable with it. And I mean, you can never be perfect. You can never, like, there's always going to be competition. You can't be the absolute best in the world for a sustained amount of time, but get to a point where you're comfortable with that knowledge, and maybe then you're like, okay, this other thing seemed kind of interesting, maybe I want to go check that out as well. So define a goal, and this will lead to less distractions, which will over time accumulate to faster progress and more focused progress towards a certain direction, rather than spending the same amount of time but learning only the ABCs of 50 different things, where you're not good enough to build a full project in any one of those things. So that's the first thing. Keep that in mind. Define a goal. All right. Second thing I would say, and this is something I learned kind of late in my career, and I wish I'd done it earlier. Try to work together, not alone. What I mean by that is try to find some sort of community. It may be your own friends, it may be somebody in your family, it may be an online group of strangers, like for example, like the Learn Web3 Discord we have for developer communities, or like places on Reddit, forums, any sort of thing. Find a developer community where you can be active, And this might seem counterintuitive, but when I say this advice to people, they often are like, oh, I'm supposed to spend my time coding. Why am I going on all these developer communities and spending time talking to people there? That's kind of counterintuitive. Well, yes, but here's the thing, the phrase I like to use, somebody said this to me once, the phrase I like to use is, you need to build a community within a community. So what that means is, let's say hypothetically you join the Learn Web3 Discord, right? You spend a few days there, talking to people, and from this community of like 50,000 folks or whatever, you get maybe like 5 people that you talk to kind of on a regular basis who share kind of the similar goals as you, or maybe complementary goals. So maybe you're a front-end dev, they're a back-end dev, or you have people around you, and you as a single person cannot keep up with everything that goes on in tech. So having these people around you, first of all, it will keep you accountable. It will motivate you to learn more. You'll see other people. It will motivate you to push yourself harder, to learn more. You'll be able to share knowledge. You'll be able to you have different sources of getting information, so you're going to be able to learn off each other, bounce ideas off each other. And when you do want to build a project, when you want to start building a project, you have people you can work with. So, and this is especially good if you have complementary skills. So you're a front-end dev, they're a back-end dev, work together, build something great, make a startup, or just make a hobby project, whatever you want to do. But working together helps you get far. It's something I realized very late, and while it may seem counterintuitive to some, I highly suggest you do it. I cannot express in words the value of having a few people around you who are on a similar journey, and how that affects your goals and your progress over time. Third thing I want to talk about, and this is a question again I get a lot, is should I learn online, a free resource or a paid resource, or should I, go to a university? I think that answer varies a lot. I personally spent, a huge amount of tuition fees on attending a university for a degree in computer science, but I genuinely think I would have been fine if I hadn't gone at all, and I look at that money spent as kind of a waste in retrospective. However, at the same time, I don't think that is true for everybody. You'll find a lot of people who are like, oh, just ditch school and just do everything online. I don't think that works for everyone. I want to present a honest, truthful opinion here. I think certain people, myself included, maybe you have a tendency where you can learn things online. Maybe you're a fiddler, right? You spend your free time learning about new things. You enjoy learning new things. You enjoy going online, finding about new things, playing around with them, and you're probably okay if you want to do it by yourself through a free or paid resource online. However, there are people, I've met a lot of people, a lot of smart programmers over the last many years who enjoy programming, right? Coding is a passion that they have, and they enjoy building stuff, but they don't necessarily enjoy just learning in isolation or learning by themselves. They'd rather be in a class environment with other people with deadlines, and there's a structured curriculum where a professor's teaching you stuff, you have people to go to for help. It kind of forces you in a setting where you have no option but to do those things, but to learn those things. And that is very important for some people, I've found. Not everybody can just go online and learn it themselves, and not everybody can thrive in a university. So on that note, I wouldn't suggest you just ditch school altogether and that's the perfect solution everybody should do. I think you need to kind of, reflect about yourself a little bit, figure out historically, your actions other than programming, perhaps historically, what have your tendencies been when trying to learn a new thing? Are you capable of just going online, reading a few things and being able to implement them in your life? Or do you need a stronger push or like almost a forced environment to do those in? And based on that, try to figure out if the expense of going to university is really worth it for you. Okay? So make that decision. That varies on a case by case basis, so make that decision carefully. And also, university fees is not cheap, so try to think about this seriously. For the fourth point, you need to get out of tutorial hell. This is a mistake I see so many developers do on a daily basis, where they're out there, they go through one JavaScript course, and they go through a second JavaScript course, and they go through a third JavaScript course from different sources, expecting that they will teach you different things, And certain things sure might be different, right? Somewhere you might learn how to build Twitter clone using React. In another place you might learn how to build an Instagram clone using React. In third place you might learn how to build a Facebook clone using React. Sure, there are different projects, but at some point you need to get out of doing tutorials. And the problem with tutorials is, well, actually, let's first talk about the advantages of tutorials. The advantage is it gives you a starting point. They kind of hold your hand a little bit. They teach you the ins and outs. They walk you through from the basics to a little higher level, assuming you're following good sources, of course. However, eventually, there comes a point where these tutorials aren't really benefiting you anymore. You might think, okay, I built this clone and I have it on my GitHub and I have it on my resume and this will increase my experience. But let me tell you, as somebody who's done interviews, somebody who's been on the employer side of things, it's very easy to look at somebody's resume and within like 5 minutes, being able to tell what is a tutorial and what is an original project. And if that's not enough, talking to somebody and just talking to them for 5 minutes, you can easily find out if they know what they're talking about, like how much experience do they actually have. And the problem with tutorials is, they're good up until a certain point, but eventually there comes a point where you're addicted to doing tutorials. It feels like you're making progress. Doing tutorials makes you feel like you're making progress. However, in reality, you're really not making a lot of progress unless you're building things yourself. If you're reliant on, copy pasting code from some tutorial or having somebody handhold you the entire time, over time it's not worth it, and it gives you the sensation, it gives you that dopamine hit. It makes you feel like, oh, you built another app, but eventually you're not really learning anything. You're just doing it for the sake of having something on your GitHub. But if I were to ask you to do that app yourself without looking at a resource, chances are you might not be able to do it. And a lot of people I know fall into this situation and struggle with getting out of here. And this is what we call tutorial hell. So you need to get out of tutorial hell. You need to reflect on your actions. You need to know at what point are these tutorials not really benefiting you. You already know the code they're talking about. Maybe you just couldn't think about it. Maybe you couldn't do it yourself, and we'll get to that in the next point. But if you're not learning any new concepts per se in those tutorials, and you're just really switching over a few things to make a new app, it's time to get out. It's time to get out of doing those tutorials. And when you're learning a new topic, you move to a different topic, it's fine to start doing tutorials for that, but tutorials for doing the same thing over and over again is where it becomes a problem. So get out of tutorial hell as soon as you start noticing that you're not really gaining any new information anymore, or even the information you're getting is very negligible. So it's not worth the time versus effort ratio at this point. And this kind of relates to the next point I'm going to talk about, which is build, right? Once you know the basics, you know the concepts, and again, this is something so many people say to me on a daily basis, oh, I've been learning JavaScript for 6 months now, and I understand the functions, I understand what these different things are, I know the concepts, but you asked me to build a to-do list app from scratch and I wouldn't be able to do it. There is no magic solution to doing it. You just have to build. You have to force yourself to not follow tutorials. And it doesn't matter, when you're doing these tutorials, you might be able to do a to-do list app in might be 15 minutes or 1 hour, 2 hours at most, perhaps, right? Because they're hand-holding you. And when you're doing it yourself, it may take you longer, it may take you 12 hours, it may take you 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, a week, a month. It doesn't matter, until and unless you can force yourself into building projects from scratch, until and unless you do these things yourself without somebody hand-holding you, without a tutorial guiding you through every step, you are not going to improve at this. This is something you cannot improve at by following tutorials, and the reason is tutorials give you a step-by-step procedure, and tutorials tell you do this, then do that, then open this file and do that, then open that file and do that. However, they kind of skip over the point where a developer needs to learn what the process is for building an app, right? You might understand, okay, this file is used for this and that file is used for that, but you don't know which one to start off with or why they're doing things a certain way. And those things you can only learn by building projects yourself. Force yourself in situations, stop doing this to get out of tutorial hell and build your own projects. If you need extra motivation, maybe you don't have ideas for what to build, join hackathons or find somebody. Get your friends from that community you should have joined from point number 2. Get your friends, work on something together. It could be really simple. It could be a recipe app for your mom. It could be some sort of hackathon project you're doing. Whatever it is, just force yourself to be in a situation where you have to do something from scratch completely by yourself, and doesn't matter how long it takes. Doesn't matter if you're taking days or weeks or months for something that you consider simple and, oh God, why is it taking me so long to do this? Doesn't matter. Do it, because that's the only way you can get better at it. And this leads to my last point, which is around how should you think of programming as a thing in general. So I think this is more of a philosophical mental model kind of thing, where there's no actionable advice here per se, but more of a way on how you should think about what is programming. A lot of people think, learning how to code, a lot of people try to approach it as learning a topic or learning a subject, kind of like, learning history, where you open a history book, you scroll through it, you mug it up, you memorize these facts. So on this date he was killed, and on that date they took over this empire, or whatever. And they think learning how to code is kind of like that. If I go through the JavaScript documentation and I understand all the concepts and I understand all the functions and features it has, I'm going to become a programmer. It's really not like that. The best analogy, I recently heard this from someone, and I haven't come up with a better analogy yet, is learning programming is not like learning a subject. It's like learning a skill. For example, playing the piano, right? Or any musical instrument for that matter. I'm going to use the piano as an example. So when you're learning how to play the piano, knowing what chords exist or which key produces which sound, you could memorize all of that. You know by heart which key makes what sound and what the names of all the different chords are, and how to change the pitch and whatever. You could have all the concepts and the theory cleared up in your head, but that says absolutely nothing about whether or not you can produce music of yourself on that piano that other people like, or that even you like, right? Um, so I think that's the best analogy, because I'm like, it's not like reading a book and memorizing everything. Just knowing those things doesn't correlate with your ability towards producing something original with that knowledge. It's about what you do with that knowledge, what you do with knowing which keys make which sound, and what you do with that knowledge that helps you create beautiful songs. Just knowing that doesn't do anything. So this goes back again, like, to the previous point where I'm just like, build, build, build. The first time you learn the piano and you try to make your own song, it's going to be horrible. It's going to take weeks, months, years to produce something you're happy with. But obviously, if you're attending piano class and they're teaching you music by, older music, popular compositions, they're just teaching you, press this key in this order and just do this for like 2 minutes and you have this beautiful song come out. Sure, you can learn that. That's memorization. But try producing an original song and suddenly it seems 100 times harder. It's the same thing with programming. You cannot approach it like learning a subject. You have to approach it like learning a skill, where the only thing that gets you better over time is practice, 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 and that's why you must build, build, and build. Okay? Just recapping everything, define a goal, set a goal, a short-term goal to start off with, work together, build a community inside of a community, figure out whether you're the kind of person who can learn online, or you're the kind of person who needs to go to a university and be kind of in a forced situation to learn. Get out of tutorial hell as soon as possible, as soon as they stop giving you value. Build as much as fucking possible. And remember that programming is like playing a piano and learning how to play a piano, not like learning history or any other subject. With this in mind, I hope this helps you. And yeah, all the best on your journey. You've made a right decision. I look forward to seeing you succeed and hope you find this helpful.